right, everyone, welcome to Friday Facts. We will get started because I know we have a lot to talk about. Before we start with our wonderful guest, Kori Hennessey, the Executive Director of the LGBT Center of Raleigh, and we are so excited to talk with them. We have a few announcements. Just a reminder, next Friday, October 20th is our monthly meeting, and please have save the date. We have our Joining Our Voices virtual symposium, November 13th through 17th. We have a lineup of great speakers. Jessica is on, and we are going to be getting out flyers and save the date, so you can make sure it's on your calendar and make sure you share it to all of your networks and social media. So we'll get that out to you, but for now, make sure that you have that time held. It's Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to 9:30. And then on Friday, the 17th, it's from 11 to 12 because that's our typical monthly meeting time in November. All right, let's get started. We have a lot to talk about. Welcome again, Kori Hennessey. Kori is the Executive Director of the LGBT Center of Raleigh. Although they are new to this role, they have been part of the LGBT Center for over 6 years now. Kori is passionate about social justice and equity for all and enjoys teaching others about LGBTQ plus identities. And they have the opportunity to do some teaching and education with us here today on Friday Facts. So welcome, Kori.
Hello, welcome. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to talk all about you and the center. But before we get started, we have a history here with Friday Facts that we really want to spend a few moments just on you and your background and where you're from and what put you on this path to doing this work, especially around equity issues in the LGBTQ plus environment and community.
Yeah, so again, my name is Kori Hennessey. My pronouns are they, them. I realistically, I think I kind of got involved in this space partially because of, my identity and who I am. But I am originally from Northwest Indiana, a very small town, not too far from Chicago, but I didn't have resources. I didn't have a community. There really wasn't anything up there. And as a kid, I knew the typical story that you hear. There's something different about me, and all of that. I was definitely that kid, trying to figure out who I am, trying to figure out my identity, and just trying to navigate life and not having resources or, a center or just anybody available to, go through this kind of journey together. It took me a very long time to kind of find my place and find myself. So, going through college and being able to gain a little bit more independence and start learning about other identities and meeting new people. That definitely helped. It helped my process, me figuring things out. So fast forward to North Carolina, you had a whole lot of, different things happen throughout my life, some very, tough times in my life. But, when I was like mid to late 20s, I really was like, okay, I feel like I don't have my community. I feel like I don't have the right people, to be a part of who I am. And I stepped foot in the LGBT Center. And at the time that was like 3 or 4 buildings ago. So but it took me a lot. It took me a lot to actually step into that space. I was very nervous. But I quickly started volunteering with the center. And then the office manager position became available, and I was like, why not? Well, why not? Like, I'm really, really appreciate the people that I interacted with and the different things that I was learning to, being a part of the center as a volunteer. And so I got the job, obviously. And then, just a few years in, I was, doing things like speaking at conferences and doing, short workshops and presentations on identities and talking to different people and really just doing a lot more than office management work. And so I moved into the director of education and programs role, and I was there for a good number of years before having the opportunity to jump into the executive director role. So definitely a journey process to getting here. But I, have always really appreciated and valued the educational pieces that we've always provided. That has been a big part of my position. And some of that really has been, working with medical providers and mental health providers and all of the above on working with LGBTQ plus folks, particularly transgender folks. So really big journey, big lots of different changes, lots of different things. But I am very grateful to being here.
Wow. Okay. I have a number of follow-up questions from that, besides the questions I already prepared to ask. And as always, those of us who are joining, feel free to add in your own questions in the chat line, and I'll monitor both. The word that really resonated with me, and you said it a few times, is that word community and the importance of finding community. And it resonated with me personally, resonated as I hear your story. And when I think about the North Carolina Serious Illness Coalition, that's what we've tried to create, a community of those who are really focused on serious illness. And especially when we talk about the individual and the family and the caregiver experience, as well as clinicians that are trying to do right by their patients. So anyway, the word community. But all right, I want to get a lot deeper now into your work with the LGBT Center of Raleigh. You gave a little bit of breadcrumbs there. That tell us about the mission before I get into specific program areas, because I want to talk a lot about education issues and equity issues and trans health issues all in the next few minutes. But tell us about, for those who are not familiar with the LGBT Center of Raleigh, what are the mission and goals of the center that you have come into as a volunteer, and then office manager education, you have evolved with the center?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely there's been a lot of changes. Even the mission has changed. The roots of the mission have stayed the same, which is really just creating a space for LGBTQ plus folks to thrive and live their authentic lives. So what we've done at the center has shifted a little bit over time, but that's we evolve and we change and we grow as the world evolves and changes. So something that we've always done, as again kind of going back to that community piece, we've tried to create and provide a community-centered space, a safe space or safer space for LGBTQ plus folks of all different walks of life. Some of the pieces that have been our strongest has been some of our youth and family programming, where we have provided or had that peer supportive space, especially for families that are trying to learn more. We've provided just social spaces, which is so necessary in a lot of ways. Thinking back on my journey and trying to find my way, that was something that I needed and obviously really got a lot out of. So now we are doing even more kind of in-depth work around again the education pieces and some of our resource sharing connections and navigating kind of the care system for LGBTQ plus folks, because there's a lot of barriers and a lot of things that we have to go through in order to get the care that we need. So and we do a little bit of advocacy in there as well, with all that's going on within the legislature. It's a little challenging right now, challenging world, challenging state, challenging, county. So it's we do a lot. We do a lot.
Sounds like it. And I have apologies, I haven't been to your space. And so I love that it sounds like there's a great physical space for people to come together. And then in terms of your programs and services, I do want to ask, since I was going to ask in a little bit, but I'm going to ask now. I do want to talk about this issue. There is a lot of focus and unfortunately, a lot of controversy and misunderstanding, specifically around trans health issues. And how do you help people understand the issues? It sounds like you do education work about identities, but I'm assuming just that's part of your advocacy work as well. What's going on in that space, and how can we be better educated, we the coalition and we folks that need more education to be better advocates and compassionate care providers?
Yeah, it's a scary time right now, I think, especially for trans youth and their families. You know, I think you kind of said it too. The biggest thing that we are seeing and noticing, what we're trying to combat a little bit, is that misinformation and misunderstanding around transgender identities in particular. I think that there's the majority of this world really does support equal rights for LGBTQ plus folks. There's actually a pretty high percentage. It's like around 80% is like the average. But I think that when we start getting into transgender identities, non-binary identities, it gets a little bit more challenging and a little bit harder because most people just don't understand those identities and those lived experiences. So that's something that I like to be able to do and provide. And I think it's especially important that I do that because as a non-binary transgender person, I can share my lived experience, and put a little bit more of like a human face, a human story to these terms and these different things that I teach about. And I think that really has helped in a lot of ways, because people see me as just, okay, I'm just another person, right? Going through, a lot of the same things. So, making sure that even if it's just something as simple as this is, how you respectfully work with, transgender people, in particular. This is, how you use pronouns. Let's practice pronoun usage, sharing definitions to terms that you or different identities that you may be very unfamiliar with, and maybe even a little bit uncomfortable with. And the more that we do that, the more that the better that it is, the easier it is for people whenever they do have transgender LGBTQ plus clients, patients, etc., come in and work with them.
Well, it sounds like besides creating a physical safe space for people to come and talk about their experiences, you create a virtual safe space and an emotional safe space. And I love that you're an educator and you came through the education pathway. What is it that you find, and you started to do a little bit of it and share a little bit when you're doing your education work, especially for a group, and we're probably a great example of it. What are the main issues that people want to talk about when it comes to either understanding identities? It's interesting. I just switched Zoom accounts and I noticed this is the first time I don't have my pronouns. I was really good about having them on my Zoom space and I just switched Zoom accounts and I realized it's not there. how do how do you set up your education programs to give the nuggets of wisdom that people are searching for right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the main thing that people ask and want to know more about is how to be a better ally,
Mhm.
how to be a better advocate for the community. And there's a lot of different ways to approach that. Sometimes it is like, I mentioned, learning how to respectfully use and talk about pronoun usage. What happens if you have a transgender client that maybe their chosen name or their affirming pronouns don't match their legal name. There's little things like that where in my my mind, it's like a very simple things that I encounter and deal with every day, all day. But for a lot of people, if they've never met, been around somebody that's part of the transgender community, I want to make sure that I'm approaching it in a very, I understand it's hard to navigate and to understand and learn about the things that you're just not used to. Um, but it is very important because there's more people that are exploring their identities, more people that are, coming out and living their authentic lives. And so the chances that you're going to meet somebody that's part of the community is pretty high.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, what you have gone through, and you shared just a little bit, you have gone through, so as you shared, some really hard times. And so the least I can do is to be respectful of pronouns, the least other people can do. And it seems so simple. Yet I have to admit, and I'm sure you have people all the time, I just turned 53. I've been speaking a certain way for a long time. It's no excuse, and I have to get over it. But I mess it up all the time. And I have my young women in my family who are 21 and 18, and they like to point out how wrong I am all the time. And I'm like, I was a health educator and I did LGBT work and women's health work in the 80s and 90s. And now you're telling me. And so I appreciate it, but it's like, I need to get over it. It's just, but it is hard for people. And how do you not get exhausted and just, the SMH, smack in my head because folks just can't, are really struggling with pronouns and identities, and just let people live and love. So how do you not get pissed off with that's still an okay word. How do you keep your just calm demeanor in your education work?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough. It's very tough some days. But I am a pretty patient person, going into most situations, knowing that there's going to be a handful of folks that, will share kind of some of the same sentiments that you did of, well, this is what I just know, this is, what I'm used to, this is what I was taught. And sometimes it really just takes at the end of the day to say, well, it's not about you, it's about the other person, and
Mhm.
trying to provide and create a gentle and safe and respectful place for everybody, because you want to be respected as well, right? um
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think that it's tough, it's challenging some days. It's exhausting for sure.
I'm sure
Um,
you're exhausted. We are exhausted. Everyone's exhausting for what we make folks go through. I do see I know I have another question of you. I know our colleague Mary Bethel has her hand raised. Yes, Mary.
Thank you. And thank you, Kori, for being with us. I have a couple of questions. One is I'm affiliated with the North Carolina Coalition on Aging, and we do a lot of work with the Carolina Aging Alliance. Are they affiliated with you guys at all?
yeah. So Carolina Aging Alliance used to be SAGE.
Right.
Yeah, which was a part of a national organization. And they were actually a program of the center for many, many, many years. But just in the last couple of years, you know, they're doing work in the Triad area now and in different parts that we really just, you know, it made a lot of sense for them to kind of break off and start doing more things that what the center had the capacity for. So it's really awesome to see some of the work that they're doing. And we have a pretty good connection, good relationship with them. And some of the things that we're actually planning right now are some intergenerational events and some different things. So keep an eye out.
Great, super. So my second question is, are there other LGBTQ centers around the state, and are y'all doing any collaborative effort, particularly on advocacy work and things like that, particularly along the lines of things the General Assembly are doing, things of that nature?
Mhm. Yeah, very good question. So there's a few other centers. The LGBTQ Center of Durham, have a pretty good relationship with them. We're actually participate in you know, some of our respective events. We'll actually be at their queer health fair this weekend. So pretty excited about that. There's some other groups in other parts of the state, which we don't necessarily have as close of a relationship with. We do work a little bit with some of the youth specific organizations. We are planning our next youth leadership camp with Youth Outright in Asheville. So you know, we do work in tandem and closely with some of the organizations. I think that when we're talking about kind of the things happening in the General Assembly, it's a lot of advocacy work and working together with some of the Triangle specific organizations. Like Equality North Carolina is a big one. We have a close relationship with them, and so there's a lot of different things that we do together, whether it is just trying to work on dispelling misinformation and the educational pieces, or you know, organizing people to go to rallies or to speak with legislators. So there's quite a few things that we do help with and we do provide. We're a little bit more on like the back end of things and the background, and organizations like Equality North Carolina usually take the forefront, but we got to work together. We got to work together.
Mhm. Well, Mary, did you have another question? Oh, you're muted, my friend.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm glad Mary brought us into the issue of advocacy, because I did want to talk. I know your passion area is social justice and equity issues. And so how can we, as the Serious Illness Coalition, we also are really focused on health equity in a number of different areas. How can we be better advocates when we're talking about health equity within the LGBTQ plus space? What can we do as a coalition? Or how can we work with you as a coalition?
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, I know that I keep talking about the educational pieces, but that's honestly like a very good first step, you know, into really digging deep and what your policies are, procedures, you know, how you work with both LGBTQ plus, you know, clients or patients, or just, you know, participants, a part of your agencies, or, you know, potential LGBTQ plus staff, coworkers, etc. too, because, you know, some of the biggest things that I say is if we're not taking care of, you know, things internally and creating safer spaces internally, you know, how can we safely work with and take care of the folks that we are supporting every day? So I think that is a big piece, because there's usually a lot of things that do come out with those pieces as well. So anytime I go into do a presentation or a workshop, there's a lot of things that do come out there like, well, I don't know what our forms say, or, you know, what does this policy say? And is it inclusive? Is it, you know, like, would it protect or does it represent LGBTQ plus identities and people? So I think that is a very important big step. So yeah.
No, that's helpful. And especially as we think about the serious illness space, and I know for years, making sure that our families that we've created and the families that are the most important, that they're also around us during our most intense time in the hospital, in our homes as we're managing serious illness. And so I know that that's key. I see that my friend Mary, we have just a few minutes left. Mary is just itching to ask another question, which is wonderful. I love your questions, Mary. Go for it.
Sorry. So you're called a center. So I assume it's a place for not only with the education and outreach and things you do, but you probably are a place for people to congregate and things of that nature. Do you actually do activities and things that like I'm used to senior centers where we've got a lot of physical activities and things like that going on. Do you have things like that also in place, or is it more of the social networking type thing?
Yeah, we do. So we're at a very exciting time where we are just now beginning to design and hopefully, knock on wood, start on construction. I know that all of that is not fun. It's not fun process. But we did sign a lease for our new community center space. So I'm really excited about that because that's something we really have just been missing since pre-pandemic shutdown and all of that. We had our community center space where we were able to have activities and do different things, hold some, you know, event programming and you know, have that space where people, like one space where people know where we are, know how to get to us, come in. We do a lot of like provide access to technology. We have our library. There's a lot of different things that I'm very excited to be bringing back because right now we're in just a small office space downtown Raleigh, so it's not very, you know, conducive to having a community center. So very excited about that. So you're all going to be a part of that journey, right?
Yay. Well, and I'm glad that we're talking about space because I realized we have not done a shout out to your website Space. If folks want to learn more, go to the LGBT Center of Raleigh.com. It's pretty straightforward, www.lgbtcenterofraleigh.com. You have your new space coming up. I know with just 2 minutes left, I was going to ask about upcoming programs and initiatives you'd like to do a shout out for. Clearly, you have a space that's being built. Other things that you want to make sure that we know about, and we're also happy to share through our other communication channels.
Yeah, I mean, we do quite a bit. So it's hard to even to pick up, you know, something to focus on. I think that you know, we do a lot of vaccine education and access work, which is a part of what we're going to be doing at the Durham LGBTQ Center of Durham Queer Health Fair this weekend. And so we're going to be doing some of that. We have our gender affirming clothing closet. That's something we're trying to have available, pop-ups and all of that. And then something else I think that I want to mention is that we are amping up and really doing more with providing support for gender marker and name change, especially with you know, elections coming up and people needing you know, voter IDs and all of that. So those are some pieces I think that a lot of people don't recognize that we do. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, you saw I was like, oh yeah, that's so important. So in our final comments, I know since we do have a lot of folks that listen in who are part of organizations, whether they're advocacy or healthcare organizations, it sounds like they could contact you and contact the LGBT Center of Raleigh if they want to do education. in their own organizations. And it sounds like either you or the you that you used to be when you were doing education solely, that folks can reach out to you all. Is that true if they want speakers and do more education within their organizational space? Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Please reach out to me. It's easy. My email is just my name, which is Kori at LGBT Center of Raleigh.com.
Well, Kori, it was so great to have you on and to learn about you and to learn about a little bit the LGBT Center of Raleigh. Let this be the beginning of a lot more interactions between the center and the North Carolina Serious Illness Coalition. So many thanks to you and many thanks to the other folks for joining us today. And happy Friday, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.